What's up, hackers? Welcome to Attack on Tuesday. My name is Taggart. Tonight, we're going to do a little bit of API hacking. This is basically my day job, and also kind of a tie-in to the materials that we cover in PWST, Practical Web App Security and Testing. In PWST, we focus on how to go after the front end of web applications, but we do start talking about how to look at the API of an application, and especially in modern web applications, things that are built with React or, in Node or whatever else, where a lot of the front end is kind of locked down, not PHP, right? You're not rendering code from the server. The API is going to be where you find a lot of your interesting vulnerabilities. And so learning how to test an API efficiently is definitely, I think, kind of a nascent discipline and something worth exploring if you're interested in web app pen testing of any kind. And definitely if you're interested in bug bounties, right? Because if you're in, I'm not a bug bounty hunter, as most of you know, but if you're interested in bug bounties, this is definitely where you want to be, because the APIs are almost certainly going to be the least audited inside of an application. And I say that because we're moving away, it's not entirely true, but we're moving away from like the days of ASP and PHP. There's definitely going to be a lot of that still out there, but more and more, you're going to find that the front end of an application is written in something like React or Vue or Svelte or Next.js, blah, 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 blah. And that stuff is pretty taken care of right now. And also because it's all front end, in order to grab data, it's grabbing data via an API. And so that's going to be your attack surface. Hey, Vanny, good to see you. Hey, Leon. Skazara, thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, I love it when I find Swagger-like interfaces in the web app too. That's always exciting. Now, we're going to explore this with a couple of tools. The first one that I found, though, and shout out, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Cybersec in our Discord who hipped me to this really nice tool called Vampy. And Vampy is, I guess, think of it like DVWA, but for APIs. It's a vulnerable API that you can spin up with vulnerabilities tied to the OWASP top 10, or at least the prior OWASP top 10, right? Now that they've changed it, which we also talk about in PWST. So getting it going, you have a couple of different options, and I'll talk about how I did it here because it involves one of my favorite hacks for getting stuff up and running on a single system. So as you know, maybe you don't, but my Kali machine that we're looking at right now is a Hyper-V virtual machine, and I use Hyper-V for all of my local virtualization, right? Obviously, Starbase is handling the big lab, but when I don't need the big lab, I keep that thing powered down because it's a monster, right? So if I'm doing local virtualization, I'm just using Hyper-V. It's very performant. I like it a lot, and plus I paid for Windows 10 Enterprise, so I might as well use it. Thanks for the bang PWST orbital. So I've got Kali running. And so Kali also, I have it bridged so that it has an IP address on my LAN as well as some internal stuff. Although even if it didn't, this would work great. So in addition to Kali, I have, of course, Windows Subsystem for Linux. And what's cool about Windows Subsystem for Linux, right, is that it is, Windows WSL2, is that it is Hyper-V under the hood. So when I'm using WSL, I'm in effect using Hyper-V. I've got another virtual machine going. That is cool, right? And as you can see here, I have the Vampy project. I've cloned it down, and it's actually up and running using the power of Docker. I have Docker running in WSL, and I built, per the instructions, I built the image. If I do Docker, if I can type Docker image ls, there's the Vampy Docker, right? God, I've got a lot of images. I could probably clean some of that up. But I've got Vampy Docker, right, which I've built from the local repo. And then I just ran Docker Compose up to bring up the containers. So if I do Docker container ls, you'll see that I have two things running. I have the vulnerable and secure because they give you two flavors, which I think is kind of cool. And I have, so it's port 5002 that's forwarding into localhost. Now, here's the part that gets interesting. If I want to access this this application from an external IP address, I have to do something a little bit interesting. If I'm doing it just for my Windows host, I don't have to do anything extra because Windows will handle the routing of localhost ports directly in through its own network interfaces. So let me slow down on that just for a second. The networking inside of Hyper-V is a little bit wonky. My machine, like my LAN interface, has a Class C address, 192.168.1. I think it's 112. Okay, that's the IP address that my computer on my home network has. Okay, but that is not the only IP address that Windows is aware of. If I run ipconfig /all, I'm gonna see a bunch of IP addresses. Right? Some of them are for VirtualBox, but I see a bunch of Hyper-Vs as well, right? And including this 172.23.16.1 because it's serving as a gateway for the Hyper-V stuff. And incidentally, we can consider some of the internal IP addresses of the WSL machines as kind of an IP address associated with the machine. Why does that matter? If I run IPA here inside of WSL, you'll see that I've got a bunch of stuff going on, right? But one of the things that I have is my Ethernet address has a 172.23 address. Okay. In order for me to get access to that 5002, that service running inside of WSL from any other computer on my LAN, I have to do two things. One, I have to allow that port in Windows Firewall. So I have done so. I have added a vampy rule in Firewall, and it's just allow 5002, right? Real simple, but that is a prerequisite. The other thing that I have to do, and this is a little bit trickier if you're not used to working with this tool. In my university days, I had like 20 different virtual networks on my laptop. Yeah, networking will do that to you. Hey, what's up? What's up, cephalopod enthusiasts? Good to see you. Al, friend, how was your stream? Hey, GIF, Cyber Samurai John. Good to see y'all. More brain wrinkles. I think at this point your wrinkles have wrinkles. It's a fractal situation up there in your cerebellum. Al talked about the deep. Hello from Italy. Ah, you're very welcome. So, we were just getting started, for those of you who just joined us, with Vampy. And Vampy is a vulnerable API project, kind of like DVWA. And we're going to use it to talk about API testing and how that differs from regular web app pen testing and how it isn't in some cases. Of course, we're going to be using Zap. So let's see Zap Gang up in the chat. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for the resub. 8 months. Incredible. Incredible. Oh, Destroy Worlds, good to see you. Been a minute. So we're gonna test this API with Zap. There's also another one if we get to it, which is I think DAPI, which is a similar situation. No, DB API. I'm trying to Vappy. So similar situation. We'll build that if we have time. But both really cool tools specifically for this. Even you use Brave? Yeah, I use Brave. I've spoken at length about why I use Brave too. I use Brave despite the crypto garbage. I despise that, and I really, like, it bums me out that the CEO of Brave is such a right-wing lunatic. Even though that's true, though, Brave is my preference for a browser. Is the API functional? I don't think so. Destroy Worlds. I mean, it works, but I know what you mean, and no, I don't think so. Hey, Zalek, thank you for the follow. Johan Frisk, Crooked Warden, The Hang Up, Makaki, and Luigi at Pelmic93, SN2501, and Mamie. All thank you so much for those follows. Yeah, you can disable the Brave crypto features. It's just that it was something that they try to monetize stuff inside of it, which is a pain. But you can disable all of that. But the reason I use Brave is because Chromium based is my preference for the extensions, and also the multi-threaded nature. And then the other reason is that, especially for this work that we're going to do, Brave phones home less than both Firefox and Chrome. And so the stuff that I have to silence in my proxies is much less. And that's really like the big win for me. That's why I use Brave. And then other cool stuff like the syncing, but other browsers do that. So it's really just like the silence of it phoning home. How was the rest of the stream going with the period tracking app? The VOD is saved. Yeah, so if you missed it, I did a surprise evening stream, evening for me, on Saturday. So on Saturday morning, we played Myst just to chill out a little bit. But then Saturday evening, Stardust, if you haven't been following this saga, go look up Not She Networks, aka Serena, on Twitter, and just look at what's been going on with the Stardust period tracking app. And I've been doing a little bit of research trying to help out there. And so the latest was they kind of put out a statement saying, oh, we don't sell your data, which was kind of a dodge, because like, no, they're not monetizing yet, but we still have questions about their encryption, because plainly they're sending data and we're retrieving data in clear text. So like, what's up with that? So yes, the VODs for that are saved, of course. If it's free, one is the product. Yeah, GIF, that's true with one exception. And the exception is if it's an early VC-funded project and they're much more interested in valuation than they are in profit, which I think is the case for this one, where they're trying to demonstrate interest and they don't care about profitability. And so they're much more interested in getting a user base, and then they are going to bait and switch you and monetize some of their offerings. Like at some point they'll say, okay, the free phase is over, now you got to pay for whatever, or they'll like freemium it or something. That's like how these things go, especially if they're saying that they're not going to sell your data. Believe that or don't. But yeah, those early days VC funded projects, yes, you can get a lot of stuff for free. Like, remember how cheap Lyft used to be or Uber? Like stuff like that before they have to be profitable. It's great. And then it isn't. By the way, the salad days of those VC projects is over. If you're interested in being an entrepreneur, the best thing you can do now, if you're interested in creating a tech company, is come up with a solid business plan and a business model that's profitable within the first year. Don't keep chasing VC money, because it is drying up, just like the reservoirs here in California. Okay, let's talk a little bit about API hacking. What do you say? So, all right, so we have the Docker containers up and running for this thing. But in order for us to get in WSL, because I'm kind of splitting my work here, I've got WSL that's going to host the service. And the reason I wanted to do that, I wanted the service hosted on a separate IP address so that my proxy would not bypass it, right? So that Zap would catch the traffic as I travel to a non-local host address. So WSL is handling the hosting of the service for me. The problem is that WSL networking is a little bit funky. So I need to somehow get access into this 172.23 IP address. Yeah, this one right here, from my host machine. So the way to do that, as I mentioned before everybody got here, so it's kind of a two-step process. If you want to get access to services in WSL from another system on your network, part one is you have to allow that port in your Defender firewall. So that's part one. And then part two is my buddy netsh. You're going to want to create a netsh rule, which you can do just like this. netsh interface port proxy add. It's a crazy syntax, but this is how it works. netsh interface port proxy add v4 to v4. Listen port equals 5002. That tells us how we're going to, what we're going to listen on. Listen address. You can put in a single IP address, or you can do quad zeros to listen on all interfaces. Connect port equals 5002. So that is the forwarding port, right? This is a port forwarding rule, basically. And then the connect address, this is cool. And it took me a while to like really figure this out. But the connect address is going to be not the gateway for Hyper-V, right? Not the .1 that Windows knows about. It is literally going to be the IP address of the host, right? So you're forwarding it directly to that IP address. So this is the IP of WSL right now. And that creates a port forwarding rule. This is the easiest way I've found to do it, by the way. There are like PowerShell things that they tell you to do this with Hyper-V, and they're all dumb because it's way harder than doing it this way, and this works perfectly. So netsh interface port proxy v4 to add v4 to v4, and then when you're ready to bring it down, all you have to do is this thing, netsh interface port proxy delete v4 to v4, and then give it your factors, right? Listen port equals 5002 and the listen address, whatever those things were for the rule. So if you want to delete the port forwarding rule after you're done, that's it. This, by the way, is also how you would do manual proxying if you were doing kind of like a pivot during a red team engagement or a pen test. So just to be aware of that. Malicious Serial, Magic, Meet Banu, and that dude Hendry, Huntic VC, Omega Gabriel. Thank you so much for those follows. All right, let's get started here. So we have the thing up and running. I'm just gonna move all this over. And so I have this thing running. Let's confirm that I have it running. I'll reload 5002 here. And I have Brave already cooking through Zap. So that looks good. I'll delete that quad 8. That was just a test. And following good Zap practice, I will include this in a new context. And I'll even name it, because it's something I actually don't do most of the time, but yeah, you can name it, call it Vampy. So you can see that's the context Vampy. Okay, and I've run the create DB request, which is in the instructions and tells us that the database is populated. Now, this is where we diverge from web app pen testing and API testing, because I don't have anything I can spider, right? Not yet. I don't. And I have to either brute force my way to find out what the API endpoints are, or I have to use an API spec. Vampy, luckily, has provided us two flavors of API spec, and these are kind of the two that if you're doing what used to be, well, they're still referred to as white box, black box, gray box testing. I'm trying to get away from that terminology, by the way, just like we're trying to get away from whitelisting and blacklisting, right? And we're doing allow listing and block listing. I think that the history of the color inflected language is worth avoiding, right? So here's my submission to replace the boxes, which is doors, right? So an open door test means that you have access to the source code, you have full creds on the system, whatever you need to do, you have everything that you would need. Right? A closed door test would be that you don't know anything about the system, you're coming at it from a completely external standpoint. And then either a cracked door test or a door ajar test, however you want to say it, would be that you have some degree of information about the system, but you don't have anything. Opaque box and crystal box is an option. Yeah, I thought about those. I thought maybe that, first of all, what's the middle point between that, right? How do you describe gray? Translucent? That was too many syllables, right? Even for me, I thought maybe a door that's either open, closed, or ajar was like the easiest way to do that. But, you know, regardless of your metaphor, the idea is let's move away from the color-inflected language. And if you want to know why that matters, I encourage all of you to look up Africanism, the theory about what colored language does in its history from Toni Morrison. There's a good old, like in the 90s, NY Times article about the theory of Africanism. Okay. So we need an API spec. We have two flavors that you'll usually encounter for API specs. The first one is OpenAPI, also known as Swagger. And that will look something like this. It's going to be a YAML file, sometimes a JSON file, that has your endpoints, descriptions, and the schema of requests, right? And parameters. That is one flavor. And we will use this because Zap can just import these directly, and we can just use that. The other thing that you'll sometimes find, and I want to talk about this as well, is a Postman collection. A Postman collection it's JSON, but it's designed to be used with the Postman API testing tool. And this is really designed for developers, right? To build and test APIs with a helpful interface. And Postman is free. I know that there's like an open source API tester. I always forget what the name is. I've been using Postman forever. Like even when I was a developer, I was using Postman. So I'm kind of used to it. But it is fantastic at this stuff. And one of the things you can do with Postman is set up all your credentials. You can even like set up an OAuth authentication pipeline so that you get a new bearer token every time you're testing a new API, and then you can go and run your tests. But the other thing you can do with Postman, which I like quite a bit, is you can set it to actually just use a proxy. So if you want, you can pipe everything that Postman does through Zap. So you can build your context in Zap using Postman and then use Zap for your fuzzing afterward, right? As long as your bearer token is still good. All right, let's do the OpenAPI spec first. So we're going to just download this from the Git repo here. I'll save that in Documents API Testing. All right, and I'll go get the Postman collection as well. Perfect. Okay. With those grabbed, I don't think I'll need anything else from that repo. That's what it is. Thanks, Orbital. Insomnia, yeah. I put Insomnia in the same category as Obsidian, where it's like I know everyone loves it, and I just like I can't. I'm out of space, right? I'm so happy with Postman that it would be difficult for me to use Insomnia. Although I should. It would be principled of me to check it out. I will commit to doing so. That's why it was in my brain like Obsidian. It has the same color scheme. Wait, get started for free. Is this actually open source? Yeah, Postman's free too, though. Okay, yes. It is, in fact, open source. Cool. FDSSec, as always, the stream is recorded. It is recorded on Twitch, and then it is recorded in perpetuity on YouTube. Now I'm interested. Is Postman? Ha ha! That's very funny. Oh, there's also, yeah, there's a web client for it as well, which is kind of interesting. Postman Labs. So yeah, I don't know if the client is open source for Postman. Quite a bit is, though. Anyway. To use the Swagger or OpenAPI spec in Zap, what you're going to need is the base URL. So I'm just going to copy that from this request here. And then we're going to go to import, and then import an OpenAPI definition from the local file system. We'll go get API testing, OpenAPI 3.yaml, and then we give it the target URL, and then we import it. Successfully parsed OpenAPI definition, and now you can see that we have actually the entire set of requests ready to go, and Zap did us a solid and went ahead and attempted to create or attempted to make one of these requests for all of the new things that it's added. That's why we have some alerts coming in. Nothing particularly interesting at the moment. Now, again, good practice is that we don't just run raw attacks in Zap, right? We don't want to do like attack active scan against the entire API and just go hog wild. That's a really bad idea. For one thing, it's going to take a while, and you're probably going to be throwing a lot of useless stuff at the wall. Unhelpful. Instead, try to take a look at what you have going on here, especially in an API this small, right? Where you can, in fact, manually take a look at what's going on. You have the spec. You can understand what's going on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do... a lot of wasted memory, exactly. So there's a register, right? And we just ran it, as you can see. This John Doe password. Now, I want to show you how this works with Postman before moving on. So if I wanted to do this with Postman, I'm going to import a collection. It recognizes it as a Postman collection. And let's take a look at this collection here. Register new user. Notice how it has base URL as a variable. What we can do with that is go up to Vampy and go to variables and change that base URL to not localhost 5000, but in fact this address, where we're going to 192.168.1.112.5002. That is our new value for the base URL. Okay, and we'll save that. And from there, we can actually run the entire thing. If we choose run collection from this menu here, we'll just run it. But before I do that, I want to set the proxy to use Zap so we can see the traffic come in. So we're going to use 127.0.0.1. Cool. And fire that off. So we're getting 200s. Some of these are bad, right, because they're not authorized. That's fine. But if we look at our history, you'll see that we got a bunch of them coming in, and they're coming in not manual, which is what happened when we did the import of the OpenAPI spec, but through the proxy. And you can even see that the user agent here is Postman. Hey, CyberSpectre, thank you for the follow. Kokorol, thank you so much for the follow. So, if you want to use Postman, this is how you do it. Either way, we have the requests now loaded into Zap, and we can move on with our lives, right? We can start using this for testing. Now, at first, this is going to be pretty manual, but then we can start talking about things that we can do to automate this and make this faster. But the first thing that we need to do is register a user, which we've actually seen happen a couple of times. We have this register of user, email, and password. And I'm going to make a real registration. So I'm going to open and resend this with a request editor. So the username is going to be Bob. And the password is going to be test123. And the email is going to be bob@bob.com. Okay. And then it says log in to receive an auth token. That's kind of the important part here. With a lot of this, we need the auth token in order to move forward. Now, getting the auth token may, depending on how the auth token is handled, it may be easier to do that through Postman or through Zap. It depends. Let's see how it comes back, and then if we can track it. Because remember, in Zap, we want to be able to track HTTP sessions for authentication, but depending on how the token is provided, Zap may not know how to do that. So it may be easier to handle the token process in Postman and just get that as a thing to fuzz off of. But let's go ahead and log in. So we're going to log in as Bob. And test123. Let's see what we get. Okay, so we get ourselves an auth token. It came back as JSON, right? It wasn't a cookie or anything. Komodo Augusto, thank you so much. This gigantic token. Now, right off the bat, we know that it's a JSON web token just based on its shape. And we're going to need to use this for authentication. Now, unfortunately, Zap doesn't have a great way of doing this. With manual authentication, it can check for things inside of cookies, right? Where we have, if we go to HTTP sessions, it says look for default session tokens. Right? But that's not actually what's going on here for the API, right? What's going on is that we just logged in and we got ourselves an auth token. And if we want to use this thing, we have to put it someplace. The place that we have to put it is in the authorization header. Black Hat, thank you so much for the follow. If we look in the Postman collection, we should see this. So if we go to retrieve all users, there's an authorization here. And in fact, I wonder if, yeah, auth token is a variable. And if we go to authorization, it says no auth, really? That's insane. I think that's wrong, though. Because the authorization here is going to be a bearer token, like this, right? And then if we do a token like so, we'll try it. We should get a 200. And indeed we do. So this adding the auth header is a thing that we can do.
And you're listening to Night Ride FM.
Obviously, we do it in Postman, but we also have ways to do it in Zap. And this is kind of beyond the stuff that we've done with Zap most of the time on the channel. Can you set JZ1999? Can you set a global variable for the token? Sure can. Yeah, so the way that I would do that is in the collection, I would actually set it up here, the authorization, and set it to bearer here. And then set the token here. I could either set it like this or set the variable to the auth token. right? And then use auth token as the variable here. So I could do it, I could hard code it or set the variable and then put the variable in here like this, right? That is doable. The problem that, and then the reason why you'd set the authorization here is that all of these requests are configured to inherit, this is a little bit small, let me full screen this, to inherit the auth from the parent. So if I set that up here at the top level, all of these other requests will be like, oh, okay, fine, I will auth the same way that my parent said to, which was with the bearer token. Hey, Sneaky Gamer, thank you for the follow. Now, in Zap, little bit of a different situation. How would we set it in Zap? We actually have to go to scripts. Yeah. The user agent replace is probably the easiest one to use here. So this these proxy rules. Oh, there is a juice shop session management. That's very funny. So there are different kind of scripts that you can set up. Active rules have to do with rules that would be handled by the active scan, right? The authentication, you can see that there's like Magento, MediaWiki API, authentication. And it's doing like it's handling the authentication here. It's getting the token, but then yeah, this isn't exactly what we want. And notice that this is done in JavaScript. There are kind of three popular languages to do scripting of custom stuff in Zap. There is Python, there's JavaScript, and then there is something called Zest, which is a point and click kind of, I don't want to call it scripting. It is sort of an event-driven UI. Let's see if I can find one. Those are Python. Oh, cool. So this is a Zest. Hide refer header, for example, where it says there's a comment if we look at this, if length of the response URL is not null, then we assign request header replace refer with, and then blah. So we actually can do this with Zest. And that's kind of cool because you don't have to write JavaScript. It is admittedly kind of a pain to write Python or JavaScript inside of here. I am sorry, Simon, but this part is poorly documented. Zap has an API, right? Like Zap has its own REST API, and that is super well documented. What is not well documented is the API for the functions that you can write in here. And in order to get the proper auto completion, you kind of have to do it in this window. I prefer not to do that if I don't have to, but sometimes it's totally worth doing. For example, like we'll try to do one. I'll ask chat, would you prefer us to do it? We'll do it in Zest, but would you also prefer to do it in Python or JavaScript? What are we thinking? Nim, GoPro, you jerk. I don't think there is a Nim API. We got triple snakes. All right, we'll do it in Python. Oh, we're definitely doing Zest. Zest comes first because it's so fast. So, notice also there's a payload generator. Like we can make customized payloads. It's pretty cool, right? The proxy rules, the proxy scripts are anything that goes in and out, right? Not just active, not just passive scanning. This is anything that goes in and out. These rules will apply. Passive rules, these are, if you haven't looked at these before, check them out because they're pretty awesome, including one of my favorites, which is hunt.py. This is a bug bounty hunting script that will alert you. It'll generate alerts based on like things that bug hunters would care about. It'll analyze responses and say, and URLs, and say, oh, you might have IDOR here, you might have possible SQLI. And if you enable this, you get a bunch more informational alerts, which can be handy. In fact, I'll enable this just so we can see it happen. I'll enable that, and then let me do spider here, just to hit those again. Nothing else. All right, fine. Okay, but we want a proxy rule because a proxy rule is going to help hit everything. So we're going to create a new script, and we're going to say add auth token. We'll call it Vampy. But it doesn't really matter. It's like the same. I would call it add API auth token because it's kind of the same thing. And it's going to be Zest. And we have to choose a template, and the template is replace in request header.zst. Okay. Hey, Underground Gamer, thanks for the Dexter emotes. We don't need to load it on, we'll load it on start and then we'll enable it, but let's make the thing. So this is how this goes. Okay. Change. So the comment is going to be I can't spell token. There we go. And then the length, basically. Then, here's what we're going to do. We're going to change request.header. And we're going to replace basically the easiest way to do this, I think, is to hook in to an existing header. So if we look at our history, we know, by the way, that the HTTP spec... Actually, I'll ask. What is the HTTP spec that indicates the end of a header? Does anybody know? Neon is correct. 2 new lines. Technically, it's 2 carriage return line feeds. Right? So it's 0A, 0D. Twice. Yes. That is correct. So, because this is a regex replace, what we're going to do is we're going to try to replace 2 new lines with authorization. We need bearer. New line, new line. And that's a regular expression. Okay. And that's enabled. So if that's been set up correctly, it's been a minute since I've done one of these. But let's just try to get books. Let's see what happens. All right, what actually got sent? All right, that's still giving us data. But I don't believe... All right, let's see what happens if we run the spider. Oh, that's very funny. We found something interesting here. So it looks like we're good on our JSON web token. Although I'm curious what would happen if we turn it off. We disable it, and then we try to run users again. Does it change? No, it doesn't. That's annoying. Let's see if it happens if we run it through here. I want /users/v1. Now, that's interesting because unless it's tracking my IP address, that basically shouldn't have worked. But I guess it is. I guess it's just tracking the session. It's returning it, but it's not actually making us use the authorization header. So that's a good thing to know, right? That it's tracking the session in the JSON web token. Nevertheless, what do we get in this token? That's one of the first things to test. Is checking out the JSON web token, understanding its shape, and confirming that it is in fact validated. Okay. So issued at, that's a timestamp, expires. "60 seconds later? And the sub is Bob. Now, if I change this to one of our other users that we saw, right? Like admin. The signature no longer validates. But the question is, will we get yelled at about it? So we're going to disable this script. Yeah, it's done. And we're going to See if it... I don't think it cares about it that way. We'll have to look for some other way that it's handling header stuff. So let's move on from authorization because it looks like we're able to get data back for the moment, which is fine. So let's see what else we have. We have a users, v1 username email. Let's see if we can get Bob's email. It's not a get, but there is a put, right? Interesting that they did a put. So we'll try Bob. Ah, there it was. Invalid token. Now we're getting somewhere. If we manually put in the authorization bearer token, invalid token, please log in again. Ooh, because I reran create DB. Let me register. Okay, now let's see if I can get that email without the token. No, I need a token. Notice that it says invalid token when I have none, and the other one was invalid token, please log in again. So it is giving me a different error message depending on the token's state. So this is the proper token. At least I thought it was. Yeah. Let's see if we can do it with just getting the user. Yes, we can. Okay. And we can plainly get other usernames. So this right away, by the way, is a finding, right? I may not, as a regular user, I should perhaps not have the ability to enumerate users this way. And often this will be a great username enumeration technique that doesn't trigger any kind of lockout or even any kind of alerts in systems that you're testing. Yeah, because the API will often fly under the radar that way. An example of that, I know for sure, is the Microsoft Graph API for Azure. So you can attempt to authenticate to the Graph API, and what it will tell you, one, if the user exists, two, it'll also tell you whether MFA is enabled without requiring you to know that. Like it'll help you figure out which accounts, if perhaps not all of them have MFA enabled. You can do that using the Graph API. Orbital, thanks for the sub to Neon. So obviously we could fuzz this simply. We could fuzz that with just a bunch of usernames if we wanted to. We kind of know what the users look like, right? There's name 1, name 2. But if we wanted to do that, we could do payloads here. We'll do add, and yeah, admin Bob, admin 2, name 1, and start the fuzzer. And actually, it really helps us out here because it gives us a proper response for not found, so we can look at the response code to see if we actually found users. Yeah, so with API testing, you're spending your time largely in the tool rather than in the browser, which is a very different experience because you don't have an interface to work with, really. Okay. Let's move on. Let's see what else we can maybe find in here. So we have some user data. We haven't yet seen books. But plainly, we have books /v1 and retrieve book by title. Right? This definitely works, right? Our books are retrievable. And now we have a get with a string. This is the one we tested. So books require a token. I'm just remembering there is a JWT plugin which we should install for Zap. Okay, let's log in again. And let's go some books. Right, I need a token. Now it says book not found. That's good news, though, right? Now, before we go any further, I do want to check, because I think Vampy told me something about being able to customize the token expiration length. And I want to make that a little longer. Adjust lifetime from within app.py. Look. All right, what does app.py have to say about it? Oh, yeah. We're going to change that up. our token's going to last an hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to Docker compose down to bring down the service. And we're going to bring this all back up. We're going to do Docker. We're going to do Docker image build. So we're going to rebuild the Docker image now that we've changed the source code, right? And then we're going to bring the service back up. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to have to get a new token every 60 seconds. That's such a pain. For demonstration purposes. All right. Let's bring up compose up D. All right, looks good. Let's confirm that it exists. It does. Let's go to create DB. Awesome. Database is populated. Let's go to register to rebuild our user again. And then we'll log in once more. All right. Now we have ourselves a token. I said we would do the auth token thing in Python, so let's go do it. Let's go to our proxy. And create a new script. API token in Python. And okay. Notice that it gives me some boilerplate code in here for the Python. And so basically, I'm going to just define my token equals, I'm going to set it to that, right? And then I'm going to do msg dot, and notice that it's auto-completing for me. And I can do set request header. I think that's right. But to confirm it, I'm going to look this up, actually. And you get to see the documentation for this. So it's a little bit tricky because the documentation for set request header, like for the actual API for this, is the Java stuff. And so you have to kind of like figure out what it is you're doing. So the HTTP request header looks like this. So it's an object that has all of these fields in it. So actually, what we're gonna do is get request header to get that thing, and then we have all the stuff we can set. Set header. And so it'll be like this. Authorization. Bearer plus API token. Now, I believe that we have to set it again. So basically, we would do like headers equals get request header. And then headers.set header. And then it would be msg.set request header. Headers. Like so. And that is, I'm pretty sure, how we do a proxy script with Python. We'll enable this and see what happens. So let's go to our books, right? We're still getting invalid token. And our script console says... Oh, hey, Brian, thank you so much for the gifts to Yanner and This is Gloom. Yes, I know that. And we did enable it. Oh, this one, did you see that though? This one actually was adding the bearer token here. That one did it. Although it said signature expired, please log in again. Which we shall do. We get ourselves a new token. And I just want to see if this worked. If, this thing's expiring in the right amount of time. Expires 51. No, it's not. It's still 60 seconds. Boo. Hold on. Sorry. We're gonna do something a little bit more drastic here. We're going to Docker image rm the epi default. Latest. Yeah. Docker image rm the epi. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do that first. Docker compose down. Bring it down. And then Docker image rm vampy Docker. Okay. And Docker image build. Let me just make sure. Yeah. That's 10. That's 10 minutes. Let's make it an hour. Thanks for the sub, Brian. All right, so now we're gonna do Docker image build to rebuild that image. I don't know why it didn't take that before. That really should have. I wanna not have to deal with this token aging out all the time. And then we can get into real testing once we have all this set up. Okay. And then we'll do Docker compose once again. Up -D. Okay. Once more into the breach, dear friends. Create DB. And then we'll log in. Oh, Dang it. Skip to skip. Got to register first, right? Let's try that. Boom. Okay, let's log in. Excellent. So this is our new API token. And if we go to the script console, we can remove this. And I also want to check it out here just to make sure that the expiration looks It's not. It's exactly the same. It's still 60 seconds. What I'm looking at here is the difference between the issued at time stamp and the expiration. And this is in seconds since January 1st, 1970, right? It's the epoch time. And there's only a 60-second difference. Invalid signature. Interesting. Let's try Books V1 now. Signature expired. Please log in again. Okay. And I want to put that in the script console just to see it happen. Now this time it said book not found, which is good though. It means that the two things that means, one, that our token was valid, and two, that our script was handling adding the authorization header. So that is how you do that in Zap. Kind of a pain, right? But it does work. Now I don't know why I'm unable to change the token time to live. Yeah, that definitely should be working. I'll prove it. Docker container ls, just a little troubleshooting here. Let's go get our vulnerable, and we'll do a Docker container exec it bin bash. Nice. And let's just cat app.py. Yeah, see that right there? 3600. The tokens should not be dying as soon as they are. That's not the way to Leon. Okay, first of all, I read this. It said adjust lifetime from within app.py, which is exactly what I just did. Now, I'm sure you're correct. Because token time to live is still set as 60. Well, that's just poor documentation. There's no .env. So we're gonna fix the docker compose.yaml to add the environment variable there. That's secure. So we'll add token time to live equals 3600. God, that's stupid. Yeah. Okay. Well, I apologize for that confusion. But that's an easy gotcha to miss. Yeah, how far down is that? Ah, I see. Customizing token timeout and vulnerable. Okay, it even still says it here. If you run it like normal, all you have to do is edit the alive and vuln variables defined in app.py itself. Then if you run it through Docker, you must either pass environment variables and rebuild. Sucks. And, by the way, they don't actually tell you how to do it with Docker Compose, even though they give you a Docker Compose file. That's not cool. All right, let's just Docker Compose up. Yes, maybe combine all the Docker stuff together. Sounds good. Oh, should have done that with D. Let's forget we saw those debugger pins. Phenomenal. Okay, and then that should be good. Let's once more create DB. I was a little too quick on the draw there, apparently. We got an SQL alchemy error the first time. And then let's register. Okay. And then let's log in. Okay. Let's just check the web token. That's better. That's what you want to see. Okay, so that token's going to last for an hour. Which is great news. So what I can do with that is add that to my script here. And then I'll also toss it here. Okay, book not found. Now, finally, we get to do something useful. I have an endpoint here. And I want to test for something like SQL injection. Easy mode for this, of course. Do a single quote, see what happens. This is book not found. Okay, double quote. Insert. Book not found. Okay. So it doesn't look like it's erroring here. But nevertheless, I always like to give this to SQL map. So I'll save the raw request header. I'll call it books. And then come over here, SQL map R. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to vim books.raw. And I'm going to asterisk off the parameter that I want to test. Yes, I do want to process it. I do know that it is set up properly, so we're going to give it a shot. All right. So it doesn't look like there's SQL injection there. But we'll keep going. What else do we have in our API? Now, notice that it says invalid signature here. That is super interesting to me. Because it suggests that I may be able to change this up and mess with it a little bit, depending. We'll see what happens. Let's go check out what else we have in our API. We have debug, which is interesting. And we got a password. That probably shouldn't be in there, right? There's yeah, that endpoint should not be there, right? But it is. Shouldn't be enabled. Interesting though that it is. Let's see what else we have. That's wild that we had that in the spec, but it doesn't mean that it's enabled. Oh yeah, it does. Let's give that a shot. So we have this endpoint. Command equals resource and F equals... Can we... LFI? Too bad. It is interesting, though, if adding this debugger equals yes just gives us the data for all of these things. And you might wonder, like, where did that come from? Well, it's vim, the openapi.yaml file. That's where we found it, right? Where it came from the spec itself, and Zap filled that in for us. So if it's in the spec, then it'll test for us here. But you don't always get that kind of detail. This is like definitely an open door test where we have the spec. Now, can we update a single user's email? Right, we have a put email, right? Oops. We're going to try to change it to change Bob's email with this, right? So we're going to try to change ours first, assuming this works. We'll change it to bob at bob.net. 204 no content. But that definitely worked when we look at the users here. Okay, now, are we able to change it for the admin? Interestingly, no. But it didn't give us an error. So I want to know if we change our value to admin here. This is where we're going to check to see if it takes our token or not. No. So the JSON web token is actually working as intended. Did it trash all of our tokens? I'm noticing... All right, we need a new token. That's fine. Let's log in. Now, hey, Skeletor, we've been up for... Well, we started about an hour and a half ago. So there's jwt.io to work with JSON Web Tokens, and of course, obviously, CyberChef also has some tools to work with it as well. Right? If I have JWT decode, this will tell us that it's expired, and then the sub is Bob, and then we'll verify it. Now, we don't know what the secret is here, so we can't verify it. We sign it? We're going to make a new one, though. Call this admin. See if this token works. No. So, interestingly, it is checking the JSON web token correctly. Despite this being an insecure app, or a theoretically insecure app. We'll add that JWT back to our script. Let's see if we can change the password. Same way. And we need to add the token. Authorization. Now that is kind of frustrating that the manual request editor doesn't honor the proxy script. Still saying invalid token. It said invalid token, but it definitely changed our password. Okay, so that's our second finding. Let's change it back. It says no content. So we didn't get it wrong. Now let's try logging in again. Okay, so that worked. Now let's try to change somebody else's password. So we're going to change up this. We're going to leave this token. And then change this to admin. Or actually, well, okay, so let's try it this way. Change it to test 1, 2, 3. Now, can we log in as admin? Oh, yes, we can. All right, so definite vulnerability there. Oh, thanks, Leon, for proposing the change to the docs. So we just found out that we can, in fact, change the password for admin, and we've now logged in as admin. Awesome. Yeah, you always want to check to make sure that these sorts of things validate correctly, right? Whether it's validating the URL or what's in the token or both or what. And it looks like they were just testing. They were just pulling whatever's in the URL and not checking to make sure that that matched what was in the JSON Web Token. And maybe whether the it looks like they're checking to see if the signatures are valid. All right, so let's see. What else do we want to check here? What's up with our books? Can we make books? Yes, it looks like we can add books. And we'll set up our token here. And we will do a book title of Brave New World. Without Googling, who is the author of Brave New World? GoPro has it. Aldous Huxley. Is it Aldous or Aldous? Yeah, it's Aldous Huxley. Book has been added. Nice. So does the spec allow us to pull books? Just as book title. So what happens if we do this? So it says secret for book title 40. Okay. Why is the secret? Oh, secret, not author. I was so in my head about like this must be the author that it wasn't the secret.
Hey, this is Huddle from Siamese Youth. You're listening to Night Ride FM.
Yeah, users V1. There it is. Notice that it doesn't show password when we pull this back. But it does if we use the debug, which we found. Very clever secret. Yeah. Okay. This is admittedly a little shallower than I thought it was going to be, this project. But that's okay. That means we have time to test out the other one. Now, the last thing we have here, which is kind of crazy, is this debugger request. Which I find interesting. Also, the other thing, this is not like an API testing thing specifically. But this is if you've played enough of these CTFs or any of the hack the boxes. I bet GoPro knows what I'm thinking about. If we see Werkzeug as the server, what's the first thing you should be checking for? I've seen you do this on stream. Yeah, it's a little bit funny. Werkzeug is the server that you get from a Flask. And one of the things you'll find in Werkzeug is that there's a command execution shell. If we search exploit X that thing, we don't have to use the Python. But basically there's a console. Now, there is a trick though, which is that in modern versions of Flask, that thing is hidden behind a pin. So we can try to go to /console, but 5 will get you 10 that we can't get anywhere with it. Right. This is the console is locked and needs to be unlocked by entering the pin. You can find the pin printed out on the standard output of your shell that runs the server, which we actually saw, kind of. If we do docker container ls, just to give you an idea of what this looks like, right? We'll do the vulnerable one. So we'll do docker container logs. That's going to be a lot, obviously. There's your pin right there. And this is the shape of the pin. So it's difficult to guess. And it will lock down. You cannot brute force this because if you try, it will lock down. It'll shut down the application after 3 wrong guesses, I think. But if you have the pin, guess what? Ah. Now I can do this, I think. Do a little hack tools here, see if I can get a reverse shell from this debug console. Oh. Good job, Taggart. Now, I may have to break this down into args. Yeah. And let's just do proof of concept here. Yeah, that part worked. So, we can, in fact, yeah, we'll do it this way. Trick with this is that it's going to be a little bit grosser. Maybe I just do a straight Python one. Because pipes work strangely in subprocess. But we do have a Python one in theory. Hey, look, we got a shell. That's like the first time I've ever seen that Python shell work right out of the box. Nah, change it up. I'm in a Docker container, so I'm technically root on my WSL, or in the Docker container on my WSL machine. Okay, so we got the shell out of that. You'll almost never find this thing these days unprotected, but if you do see Verkzoig, especially if you see like a sub 1 version of it, definitely watch for that. Because it may give up something kind of cool. And I know that's a common one on CTFs that use Flask apps. All right. I think let's shut this down and let's move over to Vappy and see what Vappy has for us. All right, so Docker compose down. And then get clone. What's your deal, Vappy? Hopefully you're not vapid. Yeah, there is luckily just a docker compose.yaml. And it'll even build it for us. We don't have to pre-build the image. This is using Docker Compose correctly. Interesting. So 8001 can do. And 80. Might change that up. Let's check out the Docker Compose there. All right, we're going to expose 5002 because that's our front end, right? And MySQL. Okay. And PHP 8001. Okay. I think that looks good. The reason I'm doing the 5002 is so that I don't have to change up my port forwarding rules. And vappy.test, I'll just add an entry to the Etsy hosts there. So let's do Docker Compose up -d. Gonna pull down some stuff. I'll go read some documentation while we're at it. Make sure I'm not doing anything dumb. Okay, so based on the size of the headers here, it's seeming to tell me that you can just do Docker Compose upd as opposed to the manual installation that has all this other stuff going on. I am hoping that is correct. Notice that it has a Postman collection as well. So we'll save that as well. And import it into Postman so we can get it. These are very closely named, but we're working on Vappy, not Vampy now. And it has multiple different users. Now, was there... What was that other JSON collection all about? Env. Oh, nothing really. Okay. How's our spin up going? Looks like it's done. So we have ourselves a web application that we're getting at. Now, it says Laravel. I'm wondering if there's a hostname situation in the web server. And if we look at the... Yeah, vappy.test is our URL. So we will... add that to our Etsy hosts and test that. So we will sudo vim Etsy hosts. I don't know what those were from. 192.168.1.112. vappy.test. By the way, it's been driving me crazy for a while that when you copy from a URL bar, right, you get the HTTP automatically. So it turns out there is a trick to fix that. If you find yourself copying URLs and then cutting off the URL scheme pretty often, found out if you go do like Control L. Hold on, let me reload this. So if you do like Control L and then like left arrow and then a space and then copy, that just copies the IP address. That is the fastest way I found to do it. Right? So Control L is a shortcut to select your address bar. Left arrow, space, and then you can select your hostname or whatever. All right, that's working. It's still just giving us Laravel. What if we do /API? All right. Cool. So again, we have some Postman stuff. There's like different versions of the API, right? API 1, 2, 3. We've got mobile logins, create users, get key, user log out. Is there anything that's actually useful in here? It's just user stuff. Perhaps we should read some more just to understand. /vappy. Aha! There it is. Although, it indeed looks just like user information. I guess there's some get details. It does have some hints in here, though. That's interesting, right? You can register yourself as a user. That's it. Or is there something more? All right. And there is a nice handy-dandy OpenAPI spec as well. So same deal. We can. This one, interestingly, is a JSON file rather than YAML. So yeah, I think this is good. What we'll do is we'll import the OpenAPI here, and vappy.test 5002 is our base. Nice. And there's our API stuff. So now we have something else to test. So in version 1, we can just register. So let's go ahead and open and resend this. We don't need any auth. In fact, I can turn that script off now. For now. Let's see. Freshman on the roof. Thank you so much for the follow. Now, this is actually kind of wrong. We don't need the quotes like this if we're sending JSON. Zap should have this set up for us. So let's try this. Bob, course 1, and password test 123. Let's see how this goes. What did we get back? We got back username is Bob, name is Bob, course is 1, which is what we put in. And then the ID is 5. Okay, so the question then becomes, is there like a user's 5. If I do like 5, like so. Interestingly, I mean, I would have thought that would have worked, right? But it is not. There was definitely a get here. Can I get all users? Will it honor the base of the... No. Let's go back to the documentation just to confirm. Get user. Oh, it does expect an authorization token. Except it doesn't need an auth. It is definitely just a get user. API 1 ID. That is interesting. Wonder why we're not getting it. Is it because... Oh, because our token is wrong. Does it... Do we just not care about the token at all? Let's remove that header and see what happens. There, so we got a success false cause auth header not set. Okay. That's still a 500. So we're not getting anything back there. But there is also a put that we can use to update. So one wonders, let's try to update ID 5. Let's try to update our own ID. And let's try to just update, let's just try to pass it the password. This may work, this may not. Not so much. API 10 just had a flag for some reason. You can register yourself as a user. That's it. Or is there something more? Name, course, password. Okay, what we might try to do is force the ID. Let's try to register with an ID. Okay, so we have some username enumeration. That's kind of cool. Duplicate entry Bob for key API 1 username. Oh, its problem was that we already had a Bob? All right, so it ignored the ID there. And just gave us number 7. Just getting errors for some of these. Yeah, it has the same stuff here in the Postman collection, so I don't think our pathing is wrong or anything. So, let's see what else we have. I mean, we should be able to... I feel confident that the thing with number 1 here is that we should... Or, yeah, API 1 is that we should be able to get different users, right? But it looks like we can't get anything. The RFC is not going to tell us much about this. And, oh, I should have mentioned that the OWASP API top 10 vulnerabilities is different than the straight up top 10. And they haven't been updated, I don't think. So broken object level authorization, broken user authentication, excessive data exposure, lack of resources and rate limiting, broken function level authorization, mass assignment. That's a fun one where you can get, you know, the same password assigned to multiple entities or something like that. Security misconfiguration, injection, improper assets management, and insufficient logging and monitoring. So it's a little bit more subtle, right, than just testing a web app. You're not going to get like a pop-up for cross-site scripting. I don't really know what it wants me to do here, though. Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like this should be working. we're just getting 500. Okay, let's go check out our logs here to see what's going wrong, because I feel like something is going wrong at this point. Docker container ls, and let's see, Docker container logs. No, that looks good. Those are terrible logs for that web server. Hi, Oblivion. What's up? I cannot imagine the PHP admin is the problem. No. Don't do crimes, Oblivion. That's your warning. We don't talk about crimes here. You get one, by the way. All right, let's see if maybe API 2 does any better for us. Okay, so we don't seem to have credentials for this. How do we log in? There's something in the resources folder given to you. I didn't get a resources folder, did I? Creds.csv. They just gave this to us? Okay. So they just want us to log in? That's API 1. API 2, user login. So API 2 has a login. Right. I really wish it would stop doing that. The quotes. Okay, so we just have creds. So we just try these? Is that the idea? Happy to do that. We'll save that to creds.csv. That's fine. And we'll run a request. Right? And then we will take that request, and then we are going to fuzz this thing like crazy. So we're going to fuzz that. Actually, kind of strange. We're going to add a position there. Add file. And documents, API testing, creds.csv. The trick, though, is that we're going to have to add a processor to it, which is we don't want to trim. Oh, fine. They're gonna. That would be a thing to add, is a CSV processor. I'd like that very much. But since we don't have it, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna just do a little command line stuff, right? We're gonna just do cut d F1 creds.csv. That gives us our usernames, and we'll pipe that to users.txt, and we'll get field 2, and that's passwords.txt. Yep. Phenomenal. Okay. And then we'll add a location there. And we'll add a file. And passwords.txt. And let's sort by code here. I'm not seeing any emails come in, which is kind of weird. Let's see if we can fix that. Thanks, Neon. Good to see you. Okay, so now we have something with an actual field. Okay, we'll add payload there. File. Users.txt. Okay. And here, we'll add a location. File. And passwords.txt. All right. Now, this is actually doing a lot more work than we need it to, right? Because this is doing kind of a combinatoric thing, right? Where it's doing every username against every password, and we know that's not necessary. So how could we make this a little bit easier on ourselves? Probably the easiest way to do it is using a little bit of Python, but not in Zap. This would be using just Python. Like so. Fire up IPython 3. Import requests. And I always have to look this up. Fine. Yeah, that's right. You set up a proxies dictionary, and then you pass it to any of your requests. So we'll say proxies equals HTTP slash localhost 8080 and HTTPS localhost 80. And I think we're on HTTP, so we're good there. We don't have to do anything crazy. So from there, we're going to just run a single request here. We're going to take... Well, sorry. Let's import our users first. So import CSV with open users dot, or was it creds.csv? Creds.csv as f here equals csv dot reader f, and then users equals 4r in reader users R0 equals R1. So what we just did there, I know that was kind of a lot. We used the CSV library to open up the CSV, and we loaded that into a dictionary that associates username with password. Yeah? So now what we can do, because we have this users, is we can do for you in users requests.post vappy.test 5002 /vappy/api2/user/login, and then proxies equals proxies, and JSON, we can actually just straight give it JSON and it'll encode it as application/JSON, equals, and we'll say email is going to be you, and then the password is going to be users at the key u. So that's the value. Whereas when we iterate through a dictionary in Python, it'll just use the key. So that's why we can get away with just saying that there. But if we want the value, we're going to access it here. We, of course, could also do something a little bit more clever. If we did up in users, we could say something like that. Never mind. No, we can't. I don't know why I thought that was the thing we could do. That should work fine, though. And look, a whole bunch of stuff is coming into the proxy. A whole bunch of stuff. Now, do we need to clean that up? Probably. Literally none of those worked. But we're still going through them. How long was that list? There were 1,000 of them. Okay. Now, this is a proper mess. So what we'll do after this is done is we'll just go through all the... Oh, got one. We found a proper username. There's Savannah Ortiz. And we got a token. Now, we can stop this. And we can also change this up. What we can do is we can look for all the 401s. And then just delete those from our history. And I just pressed the delete key to do that. And that'll take a minute to process. But once that's done, all of those failed logins will be deleted from our history, meaning it'll be much easier for us to read. See, it takes a minute, but it does get there. And let's take that filter off so we can see stuff again. Yeah. So it looks like we got two, Savannah Ortiz and Aletha Hauk. Nice. I don't think that was actually an insecure... I guess, okay, so the security misconfiguration there was that we can brute force, right? It didn't prevent us from doing that, right? It didn't lock us out or anything. All right, what's up with API 3? We can do get details. Okay, so once we're logged in, so we have a token. And Vappy tells us that we can do user/details. Okay. And let's give it the authorization token. Yeah, it is. Oh no, it's authorization dash token. It's a custom header. Be wary of that as well. Sometimes APIs don't use the proper stuff. Yeah, look at that. Oh, there's your problem, is that the user details was giving every user for the API. That's the issue there. That shouldn't be true. Should be user/ID1 or whatever. And look, it's even tracking the token along with it for all the logins. That's great. Okay. Try the Android app in the resources folder. I will not be trying the Android app in the resources folder. All right, let's try API 5. Leon says, I've seen a lot of custom implementations in my year of working as a web app pen tester. Yeah, the problem is that standards are suggestions, right? They're guidelines, they're not laws. But custom JWT implementation, yeah, don't mess around with auth. That's where you're going to get burned. All right, let's go to API 5, and we can create a user. That's fine. So what does this look like? So obviously there's an ID 2. And the thing was, you can register yourself as a user. That is it, or is there something more? I heard admin logins often, but uses a different route. That's no kind of hint. We could try to do a GET request to see if that gives us anything. It does not. Ooh, so API 5 says auth header not set. Not seeing anything here so far. I wonder if it honors the tokens from before. I don't know how this is structured. I don't know how, like... No. I think I'm missing something with how the auth headers are supposed to get set here. Unless... Am I supposed to use API 2 to log in? Which we did. And then for no. Something else is going on. I'm not sure if anyone else is aware of what we're looking at here. This is kind of tricky. I don't know how great the documentation on this is. I'm really trying here. But it just feels like there's something very, very fundamental to the way this thing is designed that I'm, like, not getting. So, like... We created a user. But I don't believe, like... Yeah, we tried this, right? Where... Yeah, we created Bob, and then... Let's call this Bob 3. Well, it doesn't work at all now at all. That's interesting. But if we do... Okay, so we take that information. That's a totally different thing, because this is an email, right? Yeah, I'm not sure how to generate the auth tokens that they want for us here. All right. Given that the scene either it's missing something or I'm missing something, I think we might call it here. We've done a pretty good tour of how to do some basic API testing. We even got into some scripting with Python and some of the other scripting you do with Zap. What we'll do at some point is do an actual API that we can test. What was the thing API 5 said about admins? You can register yourself as a user. That's it, or is there something more? I heard admin logins, but uses a different route. And that's kind of it. For API 5. Maybe a /admin that would like you log as an admin. I mean, maybe. That's a little frustrating. No, it's more than a little frustrating, because if you're going to tell me that you're going to give me the API spec, then that's what we're doing, right? If you're expecting me to fuzz for the API endpoints, then that's cool. Don't give me... Okay, this was created, right? Yeah. Admin not happening. Yeah, I don't know. This thing's kind of just borked as far as I'm concerned. So I think we're going to call it there for tonight, friends. Sorry it wasn't as exciting as I had hoped, but the basic process of doing API testing and the tools, you know, using Postman and using Zap this way, they do work out. And being able to review your findings here and set alerts makes it really nice to just work in Zap to make all this happen. And then, yeah, sometimes you do end up going into Python to automate some stuff, or you can even do it through the shell, right? Because if you can make a curl request, you can have it go through a proxy just fine. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for tonight, friends. Let's see. We do have... Gamozo's still going. So we're going to show Gamozo some love. From the hack list, fellow Rustation. So we're going to give Gamozo a raid. And I will be back tomorrow night doing some programming. Maybe Rust. Not sure yet. But until next time, friends, please be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking. We'll see you next time.